Good afternoon or good morning, everybody. My name is Jairo Lopez. I will be today talking to Rodrigo, Chips, and Ronaldo from Octagon Games. We've got some interesting discussion here on how to run a successful game studio and how to, have successful results through your games. I wanted to start it with some introductions. Maybe Chips, you want to go first, introduce yourself?
Sure. For those who don't know me, I'm Rodrigo Schomburg, also known as Chips. I'm producer at Rockhead Studios, the company behind Starlit Adventures and the other two Starlits, Starlit Archery Club and On Wheels. We have a small company in South Brazil, actually Porto Alegre. And Starlit, for those who don't know, it's a brand that we have all over the platforms, from mobile, iOS, Android, to consoles, Xbox, PS4, Switch, PC. And we also have this as a transmedia model, which we have ongoing TV series under production. We just released a shortcut of it on YouTube. You can find it on our Instagram, Starlit Adventures, or anywhere else you'd like to see it. We also have comics on this. So we are a small company, but growing and doing the best that we can with Starlit. What about you?
It seems you guys are busy.
Yeah. We are. A lot of things to do, especially with PS4, PS5 coming and Xbox, the new Xbox. So we're looking forward to have the game there too.
It's really nice. Always when I meet Chips, he's showing new franchise game based on his franchise. It's really cool. So I'm Ronaldo Cruz, one of the founders and CEO of Octagon Games. We are Brazilian mobile focus, free-to-play mobile focus studio. Our main title is Magic the Gathering Puzzle Quest. I think it's the most famous game midway among our portfolio. It's a Wizard of the Coast licensed game published by Free Go. That's the US-based publisher. We are also the global leader for live ops as a service. I always say slowly because it's a new term for most of the people. Explaining on a few words, this is a business model where we take over all games operation for another studios. So kind of unleash this team for new games. But also we take over the games to improve the numbers, to optimize the operations, or even just to extend the life cycle of the game. So that's the mainly things we are doing right now on Octagon.
Jesus, I feel bad. You guys are all busy and now, doing stuff. So I think just to get it going, I think I wanted to ask you guys to talk about the early days and basically how did you start and how, more importantly, how did you get here? So Ronaldo, maybe you want to start talking about a little bit of your history with Octagon and a few things you guys have been through.
Sure, real pleasure. We actually came from our studio, but I start talking. We founded Octagon in 2009, but before we came from our studio, focused on outsourcing service for consoles like Nintendo Wii, Nintendo DS. After we decided to create Octagon in 2009, just because Apple has the booming on app stores, right, led by Apple in 2007, and I think they have launched in the iPhone. And years after, the app becomes being a great thing, so we decided to focus on that. We kind of envisioned that we would have more opportunity on mobile segment, and so we decided to focus on IPs. For that, we need to roadshow for investment. So we started doing that in 2012, actually in 2010, and finally got invested in 2012. So since there, we focus on mobile game free to play, and that's we are now actually.
Maybe Chips wants to speak a little bit about the beginning of Rockhead.
Yeah, Rockhead was founded in 2011, but it's a company that have a huge background because it used to be a company here in South Brazil called South Logic. It's the same owner. This company was acquired by Ubisoft, and then after that, we became Rockhead. Then, since we became Rockhead, we started developing a new brand, which is Starlit Adventures. We released the first one long time ago. And it came for iOS and Android. And then after that, we figured that that brand could expand. So we had released the comics. We had a new game called Starlit Archery Club. And then after that, it's when we were about to release the Archery Club in 2017 is when I joined the company. So my role there is to take care of the TV series animation and all the consoles. So that's pretty much what I do there. But the company is still growing. We are now 100% focused on our racing game called Starlit on Wheels. It's already released. We are really happy that we have over 10 million players on mobile and over 4 million players on console. So things are doing well so far. And so far that's it. And we are right now working, as I mentioned before, on the TV series and also on a new spin-off of the racing game. So keep tuned.
Oh, that's interesting. Looking forward to playing it. You guys always come up with nice things. So I think one of the things that makes a studio successful is making games that are developed to the market, to what the market needs, rather than, oh, I like this game and that's the game I want to make myself. So maybe Chips, can you go through and I personally think, like, for someone who's been breaking the charts as both of you guys have, can you talk a little bit about this approach and how it has been helping your studios, basically?
Sure. I believe that I can go a little bit over Rockhead because I have a background working with other companies. I've worked in Germany, I've worked in US with companies all around the world. And Rockhead itself, it figures that they used to work as a service company that usually do art or programming for other companies, or they do games for other companies, small games or big games, but doesn't matter. At the end of the day, you only count for the amount of workers that you have inside the company. Like if you're gonna be bought for that, they usually count the amount of people working there, and they multiply for something, and this is how much it is your value. So once you have an IP, which is like a proper brand, and you look for the market and say, well, this will gonna reach this very specific market, which in our case is the kids and family. This makes everything more complicated to be calculated in the overall. So that's why we do as we do. And obviously we follow the companies that already did right, because it's easier when you have, like, for example, a Rayman or a Mario, and you only have to do another Mario. Everybody knows the Mario, instead of doing different games and everybody likes, is that company that did the other game? Is that the same thing? Now it's a shooter and the other was a platformer, but it's the same. So it's way more complicated to communicate marketing wise and even searching tools. So it's important to figure this out, like what you want to do. You can do all sorts of games if you want to, as long as you can keep under the same umbrella. So this is the mindset that we have. Like, let's keep the same umbrella, the same focus. We even have Archery Club, which is for younger adults, but it still works, you know. But it's not so adamant as if it were with Starlit Adventures and On Wheels, which is exactly the same niche. So if I were you guys, I would focus on that to make sure that this would actually work. And everybody that keep playing your game already know your characters, or already know your story and all that. So it makes everything much easier to communicate.
That's actually a great advice to start. And you know, if someone is joining right away and gets one of those advices, I think it's definitely a good reason to stay watching us. So stay tuned, guys. There is more to come. And then Ronaldo, you guys have been, of course, making games since 2009. And can you talk about the Octagon's approach?
Yeah, I think our experience is really focused on free-to-play mobile. That's really hard market. So don't matter if my opinion is too realistic, it's sometimes too hard, right? But I can say they reluctance to take the bull by the horns here. It's really causes studios to lose plenty of time juggling to make the product market fit, right? So in some worst case, they just shut it down, and that's worst scenario for everyone. So unfortunately, it happens a lot on the brand new industry like ours, right? On Brazil, on Latin America. So in my opinion, a big mistake is that we embrace too many stories about indie studios success, game success. I think it's that kind of romantic story say, oh, a resilient X studio X, and when almost no one believed in the game, they finally get a hit. So it is happens for sure, I know, but it's very rarely, right? And when you decide to give up for another career on, I don't know, TI or another industry that is more advanced and mature industry, and you would decide to focus on game development. You don't want to get small chances, right? You want have a big chance to get your game company or your title be successful. So I believe that's the key mistake, and that's something we learn and we avoid a lot, is to focus on sustainable stories and not the romantic stories.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely a very good takeaway. And I think leading into the next question, but also some background, I think once you start creating games that are more focused on your audience and on the market, that also helps you to find not only a place for that game once it's out to make sure it's successful, but also it opens you a lot of space to talk to publishers, investors, and different partners that will help you to succeed. Can you talk, Ronaldo, a little bit about your experience with publishers? I know you've done both. You've done self-publishing before. Sure. You've done through D3 Go now for Magic the Gathering.
Many others publishers. But that's why my opinion is we should consider the two situations. So let's imagine two situations here. You have the game almost done, and we need a publisher. And two, you need a publisher to fund your game development from scratch. You can have the two situations, but I'll start with the easiest way, in my opinion, and I explain later why I believe this is the easiest way, right? So you have your game done, you need a publisher. You know there's a lot of good and bad publisher out there, and to understand and identify which one is good or not, you need to have at least some experience in self-publishing. So I at least recommend someone try at least one or two games in self-publishing and learn how hard it is to get game visibility. It's really hard, right? And it's costly to do that. So when you learn that and you understand that publisher has the resource ready to use, but you need to identify which one is a good publisher. So, and they won't invest your game if you don't have profitable game, right? If your game doesn't give them returns, they will put your game aside, and you need to have this all the time. So before going to a publisher, you need to have a really profitable game, at least sustainable. And so why not to learn how to make this happen, right? And sometimes you'll fail, but you learn a lot. And that's something we learn a lot on Octagon, right? And at least for mobile free-to-play, that's, again, I will repeat mobile free-to-play because I know it's really specific segment model. But I would say try to self-publish, learn, make your soft launch, launch the game on such counters that you can soft launch, make sure KPIs, day one retention, payer conversion, ARPDAU. That's the language of a publisher on free-to-play mobile. So if they are not good, it's definitely a good time to talk to a publisher. So I think it's a good chance to learn with them. So, but back into the situation too, right? I said, oh, this is the hard way. No kidding, Ronald. It must be easier because there is no risk. The publisher will fund your game. Yeah, but try to find a publisher that will finance your game, your team, without any kind of experience before, like I said. So I don't think you easily will find someone. That's the hard way for me.
It's a little bit of the chicken and egg situation, right? Because you need experience to find a publisher, but you won't have experience.
Agreed.
You won't have experience if you don't find a publisher because you won't be able to successfully publish your games. So it's a little bit of a loop that the developers get into. And of course, we see a lot of different exceptions, I would say. It for whoever is looking for a publisher, it pretty much depends on the way I see this, and having done business development for the last 3 or 4 years. It's basically the publishers will see it as, is this too much of a big risk for me, or can those guys deliver of what they are saying they will in the time they're saying they will? So I think one of the key takeaways as well from the finding a publisher thing, which is not an easy task at all, is be transparent and make sure you can, whatever you have on paper, you can do it. And if you can't, just don't add it to the paper. I think that's the best thing people can do. Certainly there's a lot of publishers looking for good content, and like, it's just a matter of speaking their language and showing you're able to make a profitable game, not even a successful, but a profitable game. At some point, they might be different things. And Chips, I know you guys have been doing a lot of self-publishing and establishing an IP through self-publishing.
Yeah.
Can you talk about it?
Sure. In our case, everybody knows, everybody see this happening especially on console, and that we pretty much did the whole thing through self-publishing, but it's not exactly true, because we released in Germany, not in Germany, but also the whole Europe with Starlit Adventures, with Spiel Games, which is a publisher, and we do believe that it's important to have the publisher. I could say that it's wider than that. It's always interesting to have a partner in whatever you're doing. If you were doing a service for any other company, like let's say, we can do some programming for other company that is releasing a game for mobile or for console or for PC, and we haven't done that yet. So it doesn't matter how much you're gonna gain on money on this, because you're gonna gain a lot on experience and how they handle things and how they see things and all of that. So it's really important to know the balance between those two things. We are known for a lot of people for Starlit Adventures, but we did a lot of games before that, game as a service for other brands and other companies, just to understand how things work inside. Think like this. SoftLogic used to be a company for PC games and console, and then it was created the market of mobile. So they had to understand how mobile works, and to do that, the least expensive way to do this is doing something for someone else. So they are paying for you to learn, and this is the process with everything, even with publishing. Once you understand how the game works and how things were going to work, then you start thinking, well, but we don't know exactly the KPIs of everything and how this works and how much time they need to stay on this screen, on that screen. But the publisher is so used to that, they'll be always saying, didn't you do that? Or how didn't you just look at this? And, so I got to look at this. Oh, now I need to figure this out. And then you're learning on top of all of that. And in a way, you're paying, but they are also paying for that, for your learning curve and learning experience, so you can be able to self-publish it. Then once everything is done, you figure, okay, now I know all this KPI thing, I know all this marketing thing, which medias they reached, so we could have interesting material worldwide or in US or even China, for example. For China, it's impossible to self-publish. So you need to understand, if you already know how the publishers work, whenever you start discussing with a Chinese guy, okay, I know what they're looking for, what's their mindset, and now I'm gonna learn how very specifically the China works and what's the problem that we're gonna have, how long things take, because in China, usually it takes 6 months, 8 months lately to just have your game released. So all this learning curve, it's really important. It's all, we usually say that there are 3 ways to learn, is by trying, by someone teaching you, and by reading about something. And screwing you over, like trying to do things and doing wrong and doing really wrong, and then suddenly you're gonna learn, and you're not gonna make the same mistake. You're gonna do brand new mistakes to keep learning. So if you can cut all these problems with the publisher or anyone else around you, it will be really awesome. It would make things much easier for you. So that's, as far as I can see, this is pretty much how it works, and I would go this way, pretty much.
Yeah, I think one of the things people get attached when they talk about publisher is that publisher means money, but not necessarily, and not only that. I think when you have a publisher, what you're also having access to is, of course, in some cases, their money, but you're also having access to their expertise, to what they've done and that has worked in the past and what hasn't, and a lot of other stuff from people who actually have a different vision of the industry than you as an indie dev would have. So I think,
and the worth of this is much bigger than any cash that you can pocket. Any one, that's the classic learn how to fish instead of learn how to get the fish, you know. Yeah. Like if someone teaches you how to do the right game all the time, you don't need to have a publisher, or you will learn how to do this, and this is the way to do it. Sorry to cut you, Jairo.
No, absolutely. That's a perfect complementation. I think it's exactly what I wanted to say, and I think people get too attached to the money part. Of course, money is important. We are in the games business because we like money ultimately as well. And so do the publishers, but also, like, to make money, you need to go through some other stuff that you wouldn't have access on your own. And I think I personally, for indie devs, and having worked on indie devs before I got into the service side of the industry that I am today, my approach was always, let's go with the publisher, because you just learn so much.
Yeah, I would like to compliment that if the studio never had launched a game on free-to-play mobile, I would recommend start with a publisher, because most of publishers are ready to get a team that doesn't have experience. So they have a process to start doing, make your game get some results, some tests, improve your first-time user experience, blah, 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 things like that. So for a studio that never worked before, consider to work with a publisher on free-to-play mobile. You get a lot of learning. Don't put the eggs on your best only, so you have another game is coming in. So if it fails, make sure you have a plan to keep doing more games or stay on a game. I don't know, but you will learn a lot. So it's a really highly recommendation for who never had experience with free-to-play mobile.
I think there's two main takeaways from what you said, Ronaldo. I think that the first one is, so we see that mobile, especially mobile, is 100% data driven, and I believe you guys at Octagon have a BI team in house to analyze and go through all the data, soft launch, retention, day one, MAU, DAU, and all the other metrics that comes with mobile. And so that's one. We don't see a lot of studios in Latin America, maybe more in Brazil, having that experience in house, or even those, or people who would know how to do it in house. That's something you definitely get from a publisher. But also we see that a lot of people to keep, in order to keep them in the business and keep making games, they have a small team separated for external stuff, either hyper casual games that has been as a way of studios being funding themselves with the super quick cycles that hyper casuals have, or even work for hire stuff that also keeps paying the bills while you can now focus on something else. So that would be two alternative strategies that studios could take. But also, I want to get into, there's a question for Ronaldo. I think it's I don't know. I thought it would be cool to ask when I was preparing for this. You guys are clearly focused on RPG, basically. You have a game that is based in one of the main RPG franchises that we have ever seen in video games, which is Magic the Gathering. But you guys also have some very cool IPs that you are creating coming up and new games outside the Magic the Gathering world.
Yeah.
Perhaps can you compare like working with an IP and working with or establishing an IP and then creating a game that stands on its own rather than under a brand?
Yeah, no, I can confirm for sure. And I can say first, I think Chips know better than me, but to have your IP-based game, famous IP-based games, and create IP from scratch is really different experience. And when you have a RPG licensed game like Magic the Gathering, Puzzle Quest, people see the game really different. The users getting the game organically, crazily higher organic rate compared to a brand that we are creating. So you have to invest a lot on this new brand or new IP on the market. When you're talking about IP that established, you already has an investment that's made before you getting the license. So people will know your game, they understand. It's easier to make the users engage because they already have a good reason to install your game. They already know, they are familiar with the IP, so they almost know at least what they need to do in the game. And so the life is pretty easier in some aspect, but there is another aspect that is, I'm not saying this is bad, but it's something that we have to have on your side. It's the game needs to pass for a lot of process of improvements, right? So everything takes more time and it's part of the game. So one thing really different is we don't have 100% liberty to create everything. Everything we need to create, we need to get improvement. It must be on rules. It must be in accordance with the licensor, the owner of the IP. So it's really different in all aspects on the development process, the development cycle of release content, and on the improvement process, and also on the marketing process. So I think the market is the easiest part. To get users on the game is easy, but on the other side, you'll have a lot of challenge on development side. But in the end, what we really like in terms of Magic experience, Magic Gathering experience, is the content. The content's really aligned with the original tabletop game. I think you are familiar with the Magic card physical because it's a really old game and so far famous. And because of that, we have all the content to adapt and work with on the game, and that's the part we love to work with. We have a lot of universe of content to bring to the game. We have to adapt. We have right now, I think 4 game designers just to rework the content of Wizard of the Coast on the game. But it's really nice. It's really work with something that people created, someone created in the past, and so far it's still famous. So compared to the Tribe of Titans, that is the game we are trying to create on new market, we have a lot of liberty. So I can say some game designers love it because they have freedom. They don't have limitations like we have, constraints like we have on Magic. So I can say now, my company, I have the team that loves to work with Magic because they love to work with some famous brand with content of Magic, based on Magic, and we have the team that would like to work with freedom to create, to use the imagination, to bring stories and things new. And so for my team, it's really good to work with both. But I can say in terms of March, I think Chips know that it's easier when you have already a established brand, right? That's it. The difference, comparing the both games.
I think that's the natural second part of the conversation, is that on the other hand, we have here Chips and Rockhead, who have been establishing an IP and actually not only making it a games IP, but also bringing it into different sorts of media as well, with HQs and TV shows and other products. Chips, what's your take on and how difficult it is to create an IP?
Well, it was interesting to hear what Ronaldo was saying, because it reminds me at my very early days on the game industry, because I started doing advert games, which is games for advertisement, and then I sort of went into the movies and worked with. So it's usually like that. You have a brand, and they have a lot of things that you can't do with the brand, and how they would like to handle things, and how they would like to present the brand in a good way, so the player can play the game and not necessarily be always sad that he's using the brand. And then suddenly you became a guy that works with a set brand already, which I used to work with Swan Princess, for example, which is a well-known character from the 90s and has a lot of movies. And then now with Solid Adventures, it's so much easier when you have already the building blocks. You're not creating things from scratch. You don't need to think about what would work. We know what works already, what doesn't work, and what could work. So you're always working with this. Could this work on top of what we already have? And this is so much easier. And the best part, which a lot of people don't like, which the fans will tell you if this works or doesn't work, and if that character would do something like that or not, which is crazy because it's something that you created. It's something that is in your head, and then suddenly it becomes a product. And then someone else tells you that that character wouldn't do that on that situation. Really? Then you go to the books that you have there, and everything that we have, like a Wikipedia of everything that every character would do, wouldn't do, how they handle things, how they interact with each other. And then you go there and say, oh, that's true. The fan was right and we were wrong. And we actually had this written here that this character wouldn't interact with that one because of this, or because of that, or because he liked this or he doesn't like that. So I believe that this is super awesome. I do understand the teams that would like to always keep working on something brand new from scratch. But I believe that there is a different flavor when you're doing something that is already established, because you always have an open door with the hearts of the fans and the media and other things, or even brands that would like to work with you, which is, I think it's something important to be said. Not always we think about this, but this product placement that makes sense between your brand and the other brands should be always be considered as a stream of revenue, because we know that there's a lot of companies that work with ads, for example, inside their games, and sometimes you're taking the focus off your brand. Like you're playing Solid Adventures and suddenly you're seeing another game. Why would you do that? Why would you want to someone else interact with something that even you don't know what will gonna show up? I know that there's a revenue there, but if you could, I would take this off the table just to make sure that your brand is completely well handled, just to make sure that the player will always be aware of what you're saying, and whenever he sees a brand inside of your game, he knows that you know what's going on there, and you know that they match, they make sense, they become something more, a good cause or something like that. So that's a good option for, I would say.
Absolutely. I think creating an ecosystem where things are codependent to some extent, or they even speak the same language, makes total sense. And I think that level of care with your players is definitely what, of course, we know that game mechanics and live ops, which is my next question, by the way, are very important, but also making sure you deliver the best experience your player can ever get is important, and that's all connected at the end. Yeah, go ahead.
Maybe I'm too passionate on this, but I do believe that we can handle things in a different way, because I know that I know that you're gonna ask about live ops, and I'm not gonna cross you, but I'm just saying that not always you need to look for, it's important to have the right things, but it's also important to have like overlook of the brand in the long term. Sometimes a few pennies that you're leaving behind right now, it will become a huge catch in 5 to 6 years. So it's hard to think about this. And for those that are investors, you always think about, well, I'm gonna cash this in an account, and then because I know that in 6 to 10 years this is gonna become something, a great vacation that I'm gonna have. So you need to have this brain, and it works for games too. Sorry.
No, absolutely, it makes total sense, and I think it's important to highlight it, because especially if you are a new studio who is fighting to create an IP and you need the money, you also need to think what will be better for me in the long term, because ultimately we're all trying to build successful businesses rather than looking into the long term. And that's how studios like Octagon and Rockhead have been up to here, because it's just they've been always thinking the long-term strategy and what's best for the studio rather than how to create a solid business. Getting into live ops now, I know Octagon is pretty successful and pretty famous for live ops, and has done
good to hear.
and also have worked in games that are not only yours but also third parties and supporting their live ops. We see today that basically all we see about video games is the term games as a service, and how basically scalable and profitable the games can be in the long term. And we also, when we talk about mobile, we see not only mobile, I think even PC has become online games on PC as well, but all we talk about is retention, and for how long do we need to keep the player entertained and keep coming back to our game. And I think 90% of that strategy is around live ops. So Ronaldo, can you talk all about your approach as a studio for your games, and also a little bit of what you've done for third-party games as well?
Sure. Yeah, games as a service became a great transformation in the industry, right? And I think this transformation has some relationship with the hard ways to get a new brand on the market. So I think not only users and players, but also the developers, the studios discover that sometimes it's easier to create more experience on the same game instead of bringing a new game to the market, right? So I think this transformation, I don't know when it started, but some companies kind of focus on that and bring this vision and this way to make games. And another companies discover that, okay, let's choose for this model because it's pretty high cost to bring a game to the market, the new game or UA or things like that, or marketing, instead of invest on existing game and keep users engaging, right? So that's, I think, live up make the key point to give this chance for studios. So this transformation comes for mobile, consoles, and PC. So I can say gas, right? Because I know I will say gas. It's kind of exactly. Yeah, games as a service, gas, I think is the thing that changed everything. But you must have a team really engaged with this concept, right? And I think the key for us to make a good live ops, a good offering to games as a service, is we need a team, the necessary capability of the team to produce games as a service or maintain games as a service. So you must work on the mindset of your team since they board your studio. And, in Latin America, as you said, few companies, few studios focus on the free-to-play mobile or games as a service as a model. So when we hire people, they come in on Octagon thinking, right, I just need to make a fun game. And it is not just about fun, right? You must have your equation work well. Your team must be familiar with the math and the rules behind the game as a service, right? So I like to compare games as a service like a real casino. You imagine a casino where users come in, look around, and if you don't give it the good reception, they will leave your game. And if these users don't be boarded fast, they will leave because they are looking for a fun experience, right? So they want to have their poker table or their slot machine. It won't be fun. And you must guarantee that. But you need data, as you said. You need BI guys sharp looking for this number to know how you can give the right experience for the right user. So users are different. The players are different. And after all that, you have a great chance to have this guy coming back on the next day. And the next day, you have to not to push for users to spend on the game. We cannot do that actually mainly on RPG midi-core focus game like ours. You need at least make sure these users or players will have a really nice experience to decide keep coming back and back and back. And after that, you can start thinking about monetization, right? So your team must be ready to give this engaging experience, and this is not easy. You need to make the team really involved with such culture. All the guys, engineers, game designers, everyone must understand the concept behind a games as a service, I guess, complexity, right? So I think that's the key that made Octagon to be, like you said, so successful. I still believe we have more to do. we have more journey to get there, but that's the thing I believe we make the difference on Octagon right now.
There's always space for improvement, I guess. But also, you mentioned something interesting. Can you talk about how integrated your teams are internally to work together on features, on strategies, and basically the mentality around the team that you think it's key for the success?
Yeah, we work with Arch 8 resources in women people just to make a board for each kind of professional we will hire. So when it's a game designer, for instance, usually when they are involved with free-to-play mobile games as a service concept, we have a step-by-step program of training. So reading articles, doing some kind of exercises, but also understand some histories, some cases of success. And like I said, we kind of don't focus on romantic stories. We love stories of Supercell, we love stories of Rodeo, but we focus on more sustainable cases on the market. So you kind of make brain storms to people think about gaming as a service differently from another industry. So it's really hard thing to do, but we believe this is a key point to make the team be really boarded for free-to-play mobile game. So we also use things like weekly meeting, talking about that. Once for a month, we like to share new stories. We like to share some cases that will teach something for interesting for people in the company. Use televisions with slides talking about numbers, talking about data science numbers, talking about scientific behavior behind game designers focus on mobile free-to-play. So you kind of really put everyone focus on that because it's hard and we need everyone really sharp on games as a service, right? So that's I think is the way we are doing right now on Octagon.
I think it's awesome. Something I've seen in the past before as well is the game must be played across the company and everybody needs to play, understand, but also to say what they're thinking as well. I think it's also something that also gives a lot of space for improvement and new ideas. But also I've seen some play sessions where you'd have just Friday afternoon to play the game and have brainstorms around companies. And that has also been pretty, it worked for me in the past. But I think it definitely helps in terms of creating a solid product and also be innovating as well and creating new mechanics, new quests and content for the game. Chips, I know you mentioned it at the beginning. I know you guys have been exploring multiple different platforms, strategies, and places to have your games on. I think that's pretty much also helps you towards establishing the IP and creating something that is widely recognized across wherever you see it. I remember I saw on LinkedIn, I think, or you posted on Facebook, the day you guys announced the partnership with Asus and you were on stage talking about Starlit on Wheels and going into one of their gaming phones and so on. Can you talk about that multi-platform strategy? Also, we had the chance of working together in the past on that for other channels as well. So can you talk about the way you see multi-platform and exploring new opportunities?
Sure. Well, basically, I believe that every platform that you're working, that's something that is not so I don't know if it's obvious or not. Let's start by this. I don't know if it's obvious or not, but whenever you have a game released on mobile, I think it shouldn't be the same mindset of releasing this on console, the same way that it shouldn't be the same way of Apple TV or any other or PC, because usually when you have a game on mobile, you're gonna grab your phone from your pocket and say, well, now I'm gonna play this for a little while, and then suddenly you'll release it. Whenever you sit in front of a TV and decide that you're gonna play on console, you're investing on this. So you can't use the same mechanics. You can't use the same mindset. You can't use a lot of things. So I know that in our case, if you play Starlit Adventures on any of those platforms, it's never going to be the same experience. We even have an arcade here in Porto Alegre that you can play. It's completely different experience. 4 players with a story mode that is completely different. You know that it's the same levels, or in a way, but still, it gotta be different. You gotta look at the player, how they feel sitting on the couch and playing with friends, or staying on the bus playing, going to the work or going to school. In this case, this is something that is really needs to be understood, and this is something that we consider even in live ops. Whenever we're looking at the data, we understand that if things are working or not. For example, to see if the players are playing multiplayer, because on console you can play even 4 players at the same time, and that's something that you can't do on mobile. So I believe that this is the main difference, and that's something that not always the other companies do, and not always they care about this, because usually they consider, well, if it's working on mobile or if it's working on console and we can bring this to the mobile, it's going to work. And that's definitely not true. Different hardware, different mindset and all that. So I really would like to other companies start thinking about that, because I don't think that's too common to see. And the other thing that we did is something that at the time in 2017, it wasn't trending, which was bring a free-to-play game on console, which is something different, but it's also important to understand that our free-to-play don't have the same mindset of the other free-to-plays. You can take Starlit and play from level 1 to the very last level without spending a coin on this, a penny, and it needs to be fun. If you want to spend money on our game, it's gotta be because you're having fun and you feel like doing so. For any reason, because you want to check this new suit if it makes any difference or not, just because of that, and not because I'm putting you in a mouse wheel that needs to keep you going. And even we have a ceiling on spending. You can spend, I believe that it's $70 inside a game, and then you're done. Like, it's the cost of a premium game. So if you bought your premium game because you felt like it. So this is how we're doing right now. And with the racing game, we are tuning this a little bit up, but doesn't mean that we don't have the same mindset that it's gotta be fun just for fun. That's why I felt like a little bit weird when you said talking about Vegas, because that's exactly the opposite of mindset that we're doing here. But it's different way of doing this, and we know that things go way slower when you don't go so aggressive on top of the players.
I hear here that we just have 2 minutes left. The time has just
already
passed by.
What?
Yeah, it's
that's because you guys made it so nice conversation. We don't see the time.
I think just completing what Chip said, I think it's important, you make the most of each platform you're using. If you either use the gyroscope on the Nintendo Switch, the haptic feedback on mobile, or even the pads on PlayStation 4, every platform has something to, help your game. You're more successful in that. And I think the more you explore in them, the best. I think we have time for one question if we sneak in very quickly.
I was looking at this and I was about to, I'm ready to answer already, but make the question and then I'll answer. Very straightforward.
Yeah, I will try.
Anyone from the audience has another question? If not, I have one last one that I wanted to
No, Saulo has a question. Says,
oh, yes.
As a Brazilian streamer that loves indie games, I don't find many studios using streamers and content producers as strategy assets for acquiring new users. How small studios see these assets in their marketing and distributing strategies? And
Can I answer that?
Okay,
go.
Can I do that? Okay. As I said, it was really quick. This is the same problem that we have, like getting developers. We know that there are universities, we know that there are studios, but it's really hard to match them. Yeah. And it's exactly the same problem. We know that there are streamers. I email them and sometimes I go to the wrong way, in the wrong way. So we need to have a platform or something like that we can match those guys.
Or you just need to find a good PR agency that does that for you as well. So
exactly.
Yep. When I started my career in marketing and PR, and that was mostly what speaking both languages and doing that midfield between developers and the press or streamers would be successful. But it's not easy as well to get attention as in indie studio to get attention from big players in the press or in YouTube or streamers either. So I think we're right on time. So we finished. There was 2 other questions that I wanted to have asked. We leave it for next time. Thanks everybody who stayed with us. I hope you enjoyed it.
It was a pleasure, guys.
If you want to find Rodrigo, where can you find you?
Everywhere. Anywhere, just write Rodrigo Chips, you'll find me.
Okay. What about you, Ronaldo?
Yeah, Ronaldo at octagon.com.br, right? You can find me. But I'll be over on our events like Chips. I think Chips is more than me, but we will see each other in our events. Just getting on big or another game events, I'll be there.
Yeah.
Okay. So
in my case, okay.
If you want to find me, you can find me on Twitter, LinkedIn. My Twitter is at Jairo Lopes with double A. I also have a podcast in Portuguese with some industry friends to talk about the business of video games. It's called Abrindo o Jogo Cast. You can find it in any platform, podcast platform available, and sign up. We have some very nice weekly episodes coming up. Thank you.
Cheers, guys.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.